It's 2022 and the Razer Viper 8K has been out for over a year now. Touted for its 8000Hz polling rate, it begs the question of whether a high polling rate will benefit most gamers in 2022. Hello and welcome to the Tech Div. Let's check this out. If you're in the market for a new gaming mouse, you've probably run into countless taglines. Words like Pro, Ultra, Ultimate are usually flanked besides huge numbers detailing things like DPI and more recently polling rate. For someone who's just getting into researching a new gaming mouse, it could be a bit confusing and even misleading at times. Now, for most gamers, many of the advantages that these taglines explain don't matter as much as you might think. DPI is a measure of how sensitive a mouse's sensor is. A high DPI of say 16,000 means that the slightest movement of the mouse will send the cursor flying across the screen. On the contrary, a low DPI of around 100 would require large swipes of the mouse to get the cursor moving. When companies market their mouse as having these huge DPI values, people may think, oh, well, mouse X has a higher DPI than mouse Y, so it must mean mouse X is better. In actuality, most people will probably never need to increase their DPI to something like 16,000. That's not to say that high DPI values are completely useless, but for most gamers, they probably won't be using any modern gaming mouse at the highest DPI available. Rather than increasing DPI, people may choose to adjust software sensitivity settings with their games. Now, that being said, having quick access to change DPI may be useful. The ability to cycle through different DPI values on the fly would allow you to adjust your mouse for different tasks without having to go into your software settings. So, companies sometimes market certain features that are often irrelevant for most people. DPI isn't the only area where companies like to do this. Polling rate is another area where companies are now beginning to pay attention to. Polling rate refers to how often a mouse sends its position to the computer. A mouse with a 125Hz polling rate, common in productivity mice, will refresh its position 125 times per second. This translates to around 8 milliseconds of latency. Gaming mice, on the other hand, commonly feature 1000Hz polling rates, refreshing their position 1000 times per second, resulting in around 1 millisecond of delay. Now the Razer Viper 8K refreshes its position 8000 times per second, resulting in a meager 0.125 milliseconds of delay. Clearly, the Razer Viper 8K boasts some serious numbers in terms of its polling rate. But what about the rest of the mouse? In terms of its physical design, the Razer Viper is definitely a more understated mouse, especially when you compare it to some of the other gaming mice on the market. Its single programmable LED zone makes it clear that this mouse wasn't designed to dazzle. Something I really like about the design is that it's ambidextrous, with no distinct shape favoring left or right-handed users. Instead, there's 4 side buttons with 2 on each side, making it a very accommodating design. Both the left and right side also feature a section of rubberized latex for added grip. In terms of its dimensions, the Viper 8K comes in at 125mm long, with a grip width of 62mm and a height of 38mm. Weighing in at only 71 grams, the Viper 8K is small and super lightweight. Paired with Razer's optical switches, the Viper strives to give gamers every modern advantage available. But does it deliver? Yeah, for some people. There's no denying that the Viper 8K has an increased polling rate, that's a matter of fact. But peripheral polling rate is only a small slice of a much larger pie when it comes to latency. Peripherals are the first point of contact with your system. The commands you input with the swipe of your hand start a chain reaction where your mouse is just at the beginning of. From there, inputs must travel to your CPU, then make their way to the render queue where they wait to be relayed over to your GPU, where they're finally processed and sent over to your display. As you can see, this chain has several components, each with their own variables that affect the delay between your input and the resulting output. In the grand scheme of things, peripheral latency is important, but for most gamers right now, an 8K polling rate won't give them any noticeable advantage. Now, if you're an esports player or just a highly competitive person and are looking to future-proof your mouse, then I don't want to dissuade you. In those environments, every little advantage matters, and the fact remains that the Viper 8K has a lower latency than other mice on the market. Is it perceivable? Not unless you have a 360Hz monitor or are planning to get one. However, for mostly every other gamer, I feel like there are more important aspects to a gaming mouse than having a very high polling rate. Most notably for me, the shape and feel of the mouse in my hand are very important. When I'm gaming, I don't want to have to be thinking about having to hold the mouse a certain way or have to adjust my natural grip. Especially on those longer gaming sessions, I want the mouse to feel comfortable so I could focus on the game I'm playing. After using the Viper 8K for a couple of weeks, I just couldn't seem to get used to the size. It's simply too small and too flat for my hand, and although I did enjoy its lighter weight, I looked forward to switching back to the Razer Mamba Elite that I normally use. Sure, it isn't the newest or the lightest mouse on the market, but I find it to be very comfortable, and that's important to me. So if you're in the market for a new gaming mouse, I'd suggest focusing on what's most comfortable for you. If that's the Viper 8K, then great, but if not, then just keep looking. I'll have a list of suggestions in the description below. If you made it this far into the video, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be uploading more gaming and tech reviews in the future. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.